Alrighty, this is my 2020 Joe Biden versus Donald Trump election prediction. It's currently August 21st, 2020. I think there's about 80 days until the election. This is the third time I've been doing this, and every time I've been trying to predict the Electoral College result. What I'm doing here, as before, is try to predict the Electoral College results if the when the election takes place on during November. I know a lot of prediction channels or whatever will have their prediction be on the day that they record the video. I honestly think that's kind of useless because that's not a prediction. That's just like what if. So I'm trying to also not only predict how these states will vote based on polling data and historical trends and whatnot, but how their polls and how their perception of these presidential candidates will change as we approach the November election. So yeah, first things first, just go over my margins. Solid is above 15%. Lean is likely is 5 to 15%. Lean is, oops, that's not lean. That's lean. Lean is 1 to 5%, and then tilt is 0 to 1%. So yeah, I'm just gonna start by filling in all the safe states. So I'm just gonna do that right now. There we go. All the safe states are filled in. Once again, I know this includes places like South Carolina, which some people would say maybe is likely, but either way, it's not going to go to Joe Biden. So realistically, I'm just going to leave it as a safe. It also includes Maine's 1st district up there, and that gets the Democrats to 183 and the Republicans to 126. So we'll start with the likely Democrat states. First up, New Mexico, Colorado, Virginia, and Maine at large. All 4 of these places, I should say, went to Hillary Clinton. At this point, Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico, Maine, they've all been polling in double digits for Joe Biden, and realistically, Donald Trump doesn't have a shot there, especially places like New Mexico, which may even be safe by the time the election rolls around. We'll have to see. But for now, all these ones are definitely going to Joe Biden's column. Next up for the Republicans, we have Iowa, which is pretty much, I think, the only one I'm going to putting in with this category. Used to be a swing state, but at this point, Joe Biden doesn't really have a hope of winning Iowa. It is practically solid for Donald Trump after going to him with 9 points in 2016. It'll probably, of course, narrow up, maybe 6 or something like that. But for the time being, realistically, Joe Biden shouldn't focus on Iowa. It's only a few electoral votes. He has better things to do elsewhere. So moving over to Nevada, I'm going to go here next. Polling suggests, I think it's at +4 right now. I'm sure it'll go to Joe Biden. Donald Trump could win the state if he focused on it, but I think he's going to be a bit preoccupied with some other states such as Arizona, Texas, Florida, Georgia, and other states in the Sun Belt. Nevada, though, if it went for Hillary Clinton, with Joe Biden being much more popular than Hillary Clinton, it will likely go to the Democrats. Same deal with Minnesota. So just recently, actually, Minnesota had a poll come out by Trafalgar Group, tying it up, which is very good news for the Trump camp and bad news for the Biden camp. Although it is a Trafalgar Group poll, which is fairly Republican leaning, so do with that what you will. But it just shows that there is a competition in Minnesota, and if Trump were to focus on it, he would be able to likely win it. However, he does not have the resources, I think. I'll get onto this later when I talk about the Midwest, but realistically, Minnesota going to go to Joe Biden likely. Joe Biden, this is a state he needs to win, and Hillary Clinton won. And if it were to turn red, there would definitely be a bit of an upset, and we could see some pretty crazy things happening. Next up, I'm going to go over to New Hampshire, another Clinton state. Probably, I'd say, actually, I think I'll put this one into a likely, probably won by Joe Biden by about 6 or 7%. New Hampshire, though, it is at this point looking like a fairly blue state, especially with the Democratic primary there and neighboring to Vermont and whatnot. They will probably, go towards the Democrats. I have a hard time saying that they won't. Same thing with actually Maine's 2nd district. This one may be a little surprising because Trump won it by so much in 2016, but and there's too much polling data out there. But I think Biden can win this, especially because in 2018 they did, I think, believe flip their seat there, and I could be wrong. Maybe I'll find it here somewhere. Yeah, right here. So there is a main poll for the second district. Only a single one. Obviously, it's just one poll, and these are probably very old. But you do see Biden up by +1, and we could definitely see Joe Biden win that. So I think he will. I think Trump will not have the effort to, or not have the resources to focus on the state. It's one electoral vote. I really have a hard time believing he's going out to rural Maine to win this one electoral vote for whatever reason. He has better things to do in Florida, Texas, wherever. Speaking of Texas, it's going to go to Trump. I know Joe Biden has expressed interest in trying to flip the state, but in reality, Texas is Texas, and it is unlikely for Joe Biden to flip this. Once again, it's just one of that situation where Joe Biden has better things to do than try to flip Texas. If he were to win it, yeah, great. But is it unlikely to win? Yeah. So why waste so much money to flip these? That's 25 or whatever million people live there. Why spend all this money on this place which has only a chance to win, where you could otherwise go elsewhere and spend money on more likely safe electoral votes? Texas, though, if it were to flip, of course, Donald Trump would lose, and it would actually be quite an interesting election, I'd say, for Texas to go to the Democrats. Something to look out for. Anywho, I think Texas will be about probably 2 or 3 points, by the way. I don't really it's in that lean margin. Next up is Georgia. Same deal. Georgia is probably going to go for Trump about 1 point, maybe 1.5. I know the black vote will come out in favor of Joe Biden, sorry. But I still think Trump will heavily focus on the state, because if he were to lose Georgia, he would lose the election. Same deal with North Carolina. I know some people are saying it was going to go to Biden. Actually, I believe, if we go back here. Yeah, here we are at North Carolina. Back at my previous prediction around, just let me scroll down here. I think it was around the 22nd or something. You saw Joe Biden doing pretty well, and a lot of people were thinking he could definitely win it, but as you see, it's definitely come back, and I don't think Joe Biden will regain a lead in North Carolina. Trump will likely win the state. Once again, if Obama couldn't win this in 2012, I have a hard time believing Joe Biden will. Next up we have Ohio. Same deal as these Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio. Probably will go to the Republicans. Joe Biden will focus on Ohio, but Trump will be there more. As you know, Joe Biden doesn't need to win Ohio. Trump definitely does. If Joe Biden were to get those 18 electoral votes, that's effectively a second Illinois or second Pennsylvania. There's no way Trump could recover. Ohio will probably go to Trump for about 1 point, 1.5 points, something along those lines. Obviously, much, much less than it did in 2016, but he will likely still win it instead of Joe Biden. And same thing with the Ohio polls. I know Ohio currently, here Ohio is actually in the Democratic column on the no toss-up states for the RCP averages. Biden's up at 2.3, but I'm sure this will go down, especially by Election Day. Trump will regain support in Ohio, I'm quite certain. Next up, we got the 5 important ones. Michigan is first. Michigan, Trump has actually pulled so much funding out of Michigan. He is only spending, I think it's probably less than $100,000 there on ads, and effectively he's given up Michigan at this point, which makes sense. He won it for so little, or by so little in 2016. It is extremely, extremely unlikely that he would win it a second time, because obviously Trump's approval rating has fallen by however many percent in the state and across the country as a whole, and that 10,000 votes, all it takes is for one person in 100 to say, well, I'm going to vote for Joe Biden instead of Trump, and you flip the state to being blue. And of course, I would guarantee you that more than 1 in 100 people will do that. And I think that's the same situation for Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, unfortunately for Trump. Wisconsin will probably go by about 2 points, I'd say. Michigan's probably more like 3 or 4. And Pennsylvania is probably, again, about 2 points, 2.3. Or, sorry, 2 or 3. Joe Biden will heavily focus on these states. And as for Arizona, same as last video, tilt Republican. It's going to be very close, but remember Arizona was up quite a bit in my last prediction. I think it was like a +4 or something like that. And this time it is falling down to +2. And I remember I said last time it's going to keep falling, and I think it will. It will likely, I think, you can see if you take a look at the COVID cases in Arizona right here, they're clearly falling very quickly. And realistically, as these cases fall, Trump will probably do better. So you see Arizona, I'm thinking probably in the tilt column. And finally, Florida. An interesting one. This one's really hard to predict, honestly. But I do think the elderly vote will come out for Joe Biden. Obviously, Hillary Clinton didn't really have that same appeal to these older voters. And Joe Biden does. So I could definitely see him winning. And like I said, I predicted this one last time as well. I don't mean to be like, oh, I always predict everything, but it seems to have worked out from what I said last time. Florida is, unlike Arizona, unlike North Carolina, its lead has not really shrank that much. It was +6 last time, and now it's like +5. It's probably, will it still shrink? Probably. It'll probably go down to +2, +3, and that's what I think it'll be on election day, maybe +1 or +2. But Joe Biden is going to definitely go on the offensive here. And that's what I want to talk about now that we've filled in the map. 308 to 230. Very similar to my last one. I think the only one thing I changed was Maine 2nd District. Although just aside, when I say changed, I mean state when it comes to being in the Democrat or Republican column. When it comes to the margins, though, they've changed. So I want to talk about a few things. And here's the interesting thing about this election. I might make a second video on this, just talking about it for my future self to look back on and see if I was right. Although Trump is an incumbent, it's almost as if Joe Biden is playing defense here, because all Joe Biden needs to do to win this election, if you take Hillary Clinton's map, which is effectively, if you don't change anything, this, I believe, yes, Hillary Clinton's map here, plus let's say we empty out these states, even if Trump were to win Maine 2nd District, which once again doesn't really matter that much, these 3 states here, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, were won by such narrow margins that, once again, that same story with Michigan, if only 1 in 100 people who voted for Donald Trump said, okay, I'm going to go vote for Joe Biden, these would flip, easily, no problem. Looking at the support of Donald Trump, you see he's clearly fallen from election day. He had positive approval ratings for the job approval rating and whatnot in these states and all across the country, and he's fallen by 10-20%, whatever it may be, partly because of the pandemic, partly because of other reasons. There is no way with -10 or -20 or whatever it is approval rating in these states that he is going to be coming back and beating Joe Biden here, especially due to the fact that Joe Biden isn't dumb, his campaign isn't dumb. They know that, and they're like, well, all we need to do is just campaign a lot in these 3 states, and we have a butt ton of money. We'll just throw tons of money at these states, easily flip them, and all of a sudden Trump's losing. And basically Trump has this situation where not only does he have to hold down Ohio, Iowa, North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and Arizona, he has to also go on the offensive in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And this is incredibly difficult for Trump because, sure, he won all these states, but once again, he's gotten so unpopular that all it would take for him would be for him to lose one of these states. It wouldn't even be all of them. It'd be literally one of them, and it'd be game over for him. And this includes Florida as well. He has to win all of these Sunbelt states, plus Ohio, plus Iowa, as well as one of these 3, or I should say 4, I guess. One of these 4 states up here: Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota. Because if you see, clearly he's at 260. He needs 10 more electoral votes. He would need to pick one of these 3 or 4 states and go on the offensive there. And clearly, he's obviously written off Michigan by removing his funding there. Now, the question is, which one's he going after? Minnesota is obviously, like I said, there was that tide poll there. It could be a backdoor into the presidency, but realistically, Minnesota, I think, is realistically polling pretty high right now. His best bet would likely be Wisconsin, I would say, due to it being a bit more rural, and he would edge out the presidency, or maybe Pennsylvania as well. Who knows? I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what his plan is. But for Joe Biden, all he needs to do, once again, is win these 4 states right here. Easy. He wins. And then, once he's thrown lots of money at that, he just needs to put pressure on Trump in places like Arizona, places like Florida, places like North Carolina, places like Iowa, and even Georgia and Texas. And what happens is Trump can't just leave these alone. He has to empty all of his campaign funds into these states in order to tip them back to being Republican. And it's not that Joe Biden is like wanting to win these states. He doesn't need to. All he needs to do is run Trump out of money, and he'll win, because then he won't have enough money to go on the offensive in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Minnesota. And for that reason, Joe Biden should have an extremely easy election to win. All he needs to do is put lots of pressure on Florida, lots of pressure on Arizona, lots of pressure on North Carolina, and bada bing, bada boom, he wins the election. Anyways, that's kind of a long-winded way of talking about my prediction. Thanks for watching, I guess. I don't know what I'm doing right now. Trying to clear it. I think my final one was 308 to whatever the Republicans had. So thanks for watching. Once again, I'm not a political pundit or anything. This is just me talking, and I'll probably look really stupid when November 3rd rolls around. But if you have any opinions, feel free to let me know. And goodbye!